All right, welcome back everyone for session 5. If you're joining us for the first time, I'm Holly Clements, SSKB's Victorian General Manager, and I'm here with Greg Layden of Chief Maker. Greg is an executive coach. He's based in Melbourne, so he was dealt the pretty poor news on Sunday as well. He has coached senior executives from more than 100 companies across 5 continents and is the trusted coach of some of the most in-demand C-suite executives and elite sport coaches in Australia. Given the news handed down on Sunday afternoon that we're all going to be in lockdown for a lot longer than I think most of us were expecting, we just thought we'd touch on that. From the discussions that I've had today and yesterday, there's a sense of defeat and feeling powerless. So, Greg, how did you feel when the news of the extended lockdown was announced?
No filters here. We were pretty upset in our house. We're pretty angry, to be honest. And not going to talk about any political beliefs or anything like that. We just found it very, very difficult. As you know, we got 3 kids. 3 kids under 5. We're really started to notice in the last week. Their sort of mental game is changing. They're a lot tighter. They're losing their temper a bit easier than normal. It's been a bit of a journey, right? We've been in for over 2 months. Actually, I think it's right on 2 months now, and looks like we've got nearly that long to go again, just under. So I'll tell you how we sort of went through those first days. So we're probably fairly annoyed. Had a bit of a vent on Sunday night with each other. Yesterday we sort of we can't live like this forever. We've got to control our controllables, and I've just put some comment in the Facebook post there and some of the live things around just a bit of a process that I went through yesterday or last night around just a bit of journaling, and funnily enough, I was sitting there and I use all sorts of different sources for journaling. Sometimes quotes, sometimes books, could be anything. And I thought I'll look up some old Yoda quotes because I've always enjoyed some of the wisdom of Yoda. and I was sitting there, and there's this particular page. It's got 19 Yoda quotes, and I just sort of go through this, and it's on the Goldcast website. And the first one that pops out of this was the very, very first one that says, "In this war, a danger there is of losing who we are." And I sat there and I really thought about it and went, maybe we are losing a bit of our best selves in this process, because we're just up, to fight for whether or not you believe in lockdown or not, or you're frustrated and angry and cabin fever's getting you. No matter what's going on for you, I really felt that there was this loss of, who we are. Well, that's really important. And then I read another one, which is just a bit further down, and it said, "Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering." And so what we did last night was my wife and I sat down and we just sort of said, right, well, we've got to own this. We can't just be on the receiving end and just let our emotions run wild. We've got to reset. And so as hard as it is, and sometimes you're like, why is this on me? Like, why do I have to reset? Why can't, or I just think this little process of sitting down with some wisdom, maybe go back to whatever your favorite book, maybe get on a call with someone who's willing to stop venting for 5 minutes and go, right, how are we going to get through this next 2 months in a good spirit? Those are the ones that worked for us. And we just said, right, we're just going to be good. And we set ourselves, sort of updated our goals a bit and said, right, we want to get to the end of this. We want to be a little fitter than we are. We want to be happier than we are. We want to tick a few boxes and just be in a better space. And, since we did that last night, we're in a much, much happier space in this household today. And I think that's going to sustain us pretty well. Sure, we'll have ups and downs, but might just be something I said, share with people if they want to try and replicate that, then I'd recommend it.
Definitely. I guess something that I took away from one of our first sessions, Greg, was around obviously how you're feeling and then how you react to things. So one of the questions that I had for you was, how did you react on Sunday? So obviously you felt angry, and then I guess how did you utilize the toolkit for resilience?
Yeah, well, as you know, like if you go back to that original toolkit, I said like know
Mm-hmm.
what the trigger point is, and for me, the trigger once again was news,
Mm-hmm.
and then the response then was anger and frustration. There's actually a line in that downloadable, and if people want to go back and look at that, it's actually you can actually see my example in there.
Yeah.
So the response then was go and have some fresh air, all right, which we both did yesterday afternoon. Just a bit of fresh air between us. And then it's right. One of my responses to that is to journal. Like and I've been doing a lot more of it over the last 2 months. It's going to be one of the great positives for me is to have probably dialed up the quality of my journaling over this period.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I go back to finding the wisdom of the people that have gone before us. And that's been my response. So that was my trigger was there, and then I went back and followed the exact process under pressure. And immediately, like literally within 10 minutes, I felt better. So
Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
I might ask our team to post up that first sessions
Yes.
document as
Yep.
well. I think that's really relevant
Yeah.
given the recent news.
Yeah. Yep.
I guess it's important to realize that the situation's only temporary as well. That's something that's really helped my husband and I through it, that we were just kind of like, oh, well, it's not forever. We've got to get on
Yep.
with it kind of thing.
Yeah.
So let's try and turn it and focus on something positive. I know last week you took us through creating our own life vision. And I think this week we're going to talk about executing it. So do you want to kick that off?
Yeah, sure. Look, I might just bring up a couple of things here on my page. Like, there's an old saying, it's an absolute beauty. It says, like, we spoke last week about creating your vision, and the reason you create a vision and have a vision board is, one is so that you achieve your goals, but the other is that when you're in really difficult times like this, vision can sustain you. It can keep you positive. And we all know that as you go towards a vision, you sort of ebb and flow a bit. It's sort of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. You know, life gets a bit chaotic. It's not so straightforward. And so having that vision, which is sort of like the eyes on the prize, the destination that you just continually march toward with sort of 1,000 small steps, that's the thing that sustains you through this, is having an outcome you're trying to get to. But what I've found, and I think for a lot of years, like I had all these wonderful ideas and goals and dreams, but I just had no discipline and I had no decent plan. And so I sort of, the only way to describe me was that I was a dreamer, and this is through my 20s in particular. I just didn't really make that much progress to any sort of decent sized vision. I ticked things off, but I think through my 30s, I got way, way, way better at that. And that's sort of what I wanted to share with people today, because it's some of the practical lessons from the pitfalls or the mistakes I made along the way, and some of the things I've learned from the CEOs I've met, or I know a lot of the really big sort of self-help gurus in the States, and some of their little tricks of the trade to make this practical, right? And I sort of have worked out that there's a few different pitfalls in this process, right? And one of the things is, I spoke last week about understanding the role of chapters. So this client of mine in the business world came to me once and said, "Hey, mate, I really want to do this MBA, but I said I'm really finding it hard to get to do that right now." And I said, "Well, let's just paint the picture of where you're at, what's going on for you." And he said, "I've got a pretty senior role in a large organisation. I've got a couple of kids who are at school, like young kids. My wife also works, I think 3 or 4 days a week. It's a really busy life, and I said, we just sort of went through it, and he's got a few other goals he's trying to achieve at the time. And I said, are you applying, the principle of chapters, which is around saying, well, the next year or so is this, then the year after that is this, the year after that is this, because what he was attempting to do was everything all at once. And as a result, different parts of his life were suffering. And I said, if you add in an MBA and the number of hours per week that is over the next year or 2 years, what other parts of your life are going to be sacrificed? And he said, oh, well, it's my kids, and they're sort of 6, 7 years old. It's a magic time. I won't see them as much. My wife and I went. And immediately when he started to talk it through, he goes, okay, now is probably not the right time. Even though it would be good for my career, it wouldn't be good in other ways. So what we were able to do, what he was able to do was say, what is a manageable, good balancing act to live a really good life now for the next 1 or 2 years, and then what's the bit after that? He worked out that in about 2 years' time, they just would have less on their plate, right? He could finish up a few things, big projects at work, some with his wife. Anyway, for him, it was just push it out 2 years. Now, when you start to say, and this is the power of chapters, is if you say everything is now, it sort of means nothing is later. And if you don't actually sort of schedule in, like I said, MBA starts in 2 years, or that's what he said. He said, now at least I know that it's on the plan, it's just not now. And that's okay, it calms him down. If it's not in the plan, he hasn't thought about when in his life he will do it, it starts to nag away at him. And go, when am I going to do that MBA? Oh, I don't know, I've got to do it, it's starting to nag. And that kind of stuff actually eats away at your psychology. And so chapters play a role in allowing us to be focused on what we need to be focused on right now and not be so worried about the things we're not doing. It's a decision about what is now and what is next and what is later. It's not so much a decision about what would never happen. So, like as an example, last Christmas I was on holidays on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, and my wife got me a kite surfing lesson. And I had this fantastic morning out on the beach. It was late morning, the breeze was starting to pick up, and I was having this I can't believe I'm dreaming about how good this is now. We're a rainy lockdown day. Wow, I can't wait to get back to the Sunshine Coast. Anyway, so I'm having this magical day out there, and I had a good time. Like it was, I think, a couple of hours, this lesson. And I walked off and my wife saw a grin on my face. She said, wow, like when we get back to Melbourne, maybe you should invest in one of those. And I said, oh God, I'd love to, but when would I have the time? Like, we got 3 kids under 5. I just can't see me. So are you going to give me 3 hours on a Saturday afternoon? Sit me at the beach? No. I don't think that'd be fair. It's not the game we play here. So I said to her, it's great, but it's for another time in our lives. And I just felt completely comfortable with that because I could see I'm playing that chapters game. And so that's the role of chapters. And what they do is, the most important thing is you pick a period of time and you almost give it a bit of a theme. So if people want to get that downloadable now, I'll just share my screen and I'll just show them what this sort of looks like. So here's my screen. Can you see that, Holly? Can you see that screen?
Yeah,
right, all good. Excellent. So I'm just going to go down to the template, right? Because I'm going to talk through these 5 things. But here's an example. I've sort of filled it out with a bit of what our shift in chapters are. Like, so this particular chapter, you can see where it says renovate, rejuvenate, and reset. Right? That's our process till Christmas or January, right? We're looking at what's around in front of us. We're getting the data from what's happening around Melbourne. We can't see huge business growth. We can't see kids being back at school. So what we want to do is have this little period where we say, okay, we've got some renovations we want to do in our house. We're going to do a bit of that. We're going to rejuvenate ourselves and reset our minds. At this particular point in our lives, it's a reset for our life. What's priority for us? And so it's this thing that this particular chapter was not there until very recently. Mm-hmm. Okay. Before, it was the next phase of our lives, which is this particular one. I can't remember what it was called. I think it was called, because we had one that was linked to our business before, and the chapter there was the set up the platform of our business, which has been done, and now we're actually in this growth phase, right? So we were about growing and expanding our roots around the area, growing and expanding our roots around the business, and really just enjoying our life. Now we've got this little thing in place. Now, it doesn't mean that next chapter doesn't exist. It just means we've said, well, let's not try and do all that when the circumstances are different. So your chapter is in response to the circumstance in front of you. Mm. So the first thing is, well, look at your vision and say, okay, what's the first step? In many ways, it's a bit like project planning, right? If you've ever done project management, there's normally a requirements phase, there's a design phase, there's a build phase, there's a test phase, there's a go live phase, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Sort of the same. Like here you're going, okay, well, what's our first thing? How long is that going to last? Is that 3 months, 6 months, a year? And then go through that. once you've got a chapter, then you want to put in some goals for that. And so these are some of ours for this year. Just financial stability for us this year. We don't need to be anything other than that. Hopefully we can stay stable by the time the end of the year comes. Obviously we've been affected like everyone financially. We want to increase our fitness a little bit and just lose a couple of kilos each. The old COVID kilos have made a bit of an attack, right? We want to really focus on better mental strength and presence, right? Which is, we're really going to focus on that being a key goal. And I feel like we're ticking that box probably 5 days out of 7. I think we're pretty good. And I'll be happy with that all the way through to Christmas, given the challenges and the difference of lifestyle that we're in, right? The other goal is I want to increase network and improve the assets of our business, right? Which is what I'll just keep working away at that this year. So the goals sort of tell us that by the end of the chapter, and I look at those 5 things and say, if by January we have done those 5 things, will that have been a good chapter? And the answer is absolutely. That's a solid, really good set of outcomes, right? There might be a few others in there, but that just gives you a bit of a flavour of how to do it. Then we need a plan, right? Like I need to know what's first, what's second. I need to know what resources do I need to. So if I look at our plan, it says we're going to keep giving things through the podcast and live sessions like this, so that the resources for that is largely my time, a little bit of money to produce our podcast. Finish renovation kitchen floors. We're going to need time and money for that. So what we're doing here is just sort of playing out, well, what are the key things in this plan, right, that are really important to get us there? Okay, and what you do for each of those, so if you put an item in and say, well, the key thing that we're going to do, that's the renovating our kitchen and our floors, well, that's got how much time, how much money, just get a bit clearer on it so you know what's going to be required to nail that particular part of the plan. So that really gives you a really high level idea of how you take a vision, turn it into some chapters, what are the key goals, and then what's the plan? Like this is get vision through goals into actions. What I've then added on here is 2 additional things, which I think are absolutely vital to achieving goals, right? The first is mentors and models of excellence. So to give you an example, I've done 2 ultra marathons, one in 2008, one in 2010. First one was the Gobi March. It's a 250k ultra marathon across the Gobi Desert. It's fair to say it's absolutely brutal. It's one of the hardest races on the planet. Now, I did that without any coach first time around. I did it on my own, no teammates, nothing, just trained my heart out and just went for it, right? And it was to say it was brutal, like it was just crazy. Like it was so hard. I was racked with blisters. I didn't run anywhere near as far as I wanted to out of the 250. It was just difficult, right, to get through it. It was an absolute struggle. Now, 2 years later, I decided I'd go back and do another race, which is called the Atacama Crossing. So this is across the Atacama Desert in Chile. This time in advance, I got a coach. And this guy called John, he actually lives in Queensland, but he actually held the record for the furthest distance run in 24 hours for an Australian. And I think it was like 230 kilometers he ran in under 24 hours. And my God, this is the guy I want as my coach, right? That's to Melbourne and Geelong, back again 3 times. Like if he can do, I couldn't drive that in 24 hours 3 times, And I want this guy on my team. So I went and met this guy. And the first thing we did was we went on this run through, this is when I was living in Brisbane, and we went on this run through the rolling hills of the back of Brisbane. And my God, it was a 23k trail run. Oh my God, I was just absolutely beaten. And as we went along, he was watching my technique. He was watching the way I breathed, the way I carried myself. And he just said, hey, just try this. You're using too much quadricep on this one. Run more with your glutes when you're going uphill, then into the mountain, get better balance. Oh, don't use your calf muscles here. You wear yourself out. And I'm going, who knew this kind of stuff? I didn't know that's how you run through the trails.
You just ran.
I just did this too. I just ran. I thought that's what you did, And this is the thing, when you're setting out to do something really new and difficult that may be on your vision, you think, I don't know how to do that. What do? You go to the people that have been there before you and done it. Right now, first time around, I didn't do that. It was bloody hard. Second time I turned up to Atacama Crossing, I was twice as fit. like absolutely twice as fit. This guy had me running most weekends a marathon on a Saturday and a Sunday back to back. And he said, when we can get you to Sunday afternoon, having run 2 marathons in a weekend, and you're not even sore, then you're ready for a 250K run. And I went, and that's what he got us to. And so I had, he sort of built us up, built me, and I actually trained with another guy too, guy called Glenn Hunt, and we did this together. And it just made an enormous difference to our fitness. And so the other come across thing for me was I got a bit sick there, but other than that, it was a far more enjoyable race as far as fitness goes, right? So when you're setting out to do something new, something different, this is what I say, learn from the masters. Go and learn direct from the people that have shown the way. And like when I started out being a coach, I was reading all sorts of books, and one of them was one of Tony Robbins' books, the great American life coach guy, and he's a real, and I thought, wow, like Tony's an interesting guy. He's not everyone's flavor, I get that. But I sat there and went, who taught Tony? Like, how did he work all this stuff out? And so I did this research into where who took him through what he knows. And I found the guys that did a lot of his early training, and I went and trained with them. And that was life-changing, to go to the source of the people behind the guy who was the guy, this is where it's at. This is the source of the knowledge, right? And as a result, my coaching ability went through the roof because, I learned essentially a lot of the same skills he had. Now he learned a whole bunch of other stuff as well, but it was just very interesting to hear from, the originators, about what he was saying. So what I recommend you do is, as you've got your chapter and your goals and your plan, is then put in who are the mentors or the models of excellence in that particular thing, right? That can talk you through it. Now, you're talking renovating a kitchen, you don't really need to, right? You just look on Instagram or something, and I'll tell you what a bloody great kitchen, and then you just go to we just bought it from IKEA to turn it up in boxes. So that's not so important, but let's just say for a minute, you've decided you want to get a promotion, or let's just say for a minute, you want to improve your fitness. Who are you modeling yourself on? Right, that's taking the same journey as you, right, from your level of fitness or your level of ability to the next level. Who are you learning from? Because that will help you cut corners. Like some of the mistakes we make are baffling when you look back upon yourself, because you might just read one book or one-liner, and you go, oh, you have one of those moments, like, I can't believe I didn't know this. If I hadn't known this, and there's some guru out there that's known it for years.
Yeah. I guess who are you using though for, I guess, getting through lockdown?
Well, I think for me, right, it's a lot of dead mentors, to be honest. That's sounds a bit strange, but this is my. So I read this. This is one of the books I read a lot, which is about Stoic philosophy, right? It's just something that I'm really trying to work on. So if you can go direct to people, you do, right? You go and learn from them. I've had business coaches for years on end, and I always, these people have all been there in front of me and done what I do, right? There's a guy here in Melbourne called Ed Dale, who's a bit of a marketing and advertising guru. There's a guy in the States called Alex Mendoza, and I've used him for years. And I stick close to these guys. They introduce me to other people. And that's the other benefit of working with people who are really, really good at what they do, is not only do you learn from them and they help you skip through the pitfalls, you've often got their network. They'll often open up a door for you. And a lot of those doors, you didn't even know were possible. Like I was at a conference in the US last 2 years ago, 2 Octobers ago. And there was a whole bunch of other business owners there. And one of them sort of said, look, I'm trying to, so he was talking to the guys running the event, and the guy called Alex Mendoza, and he said, look, I'd love to get in and work actually alongside Tony Robbins, and because I think he's got a back problem, and this guy runs a chiropractic business, he thought he could help him. And Alex was like, rather than trying to teach you marketing, why don't we just call him up? And so I'm not joking, in the room they called up Tony and said, there's a guy here who wants to pitch to you. They pitched Tony over the loudspeaker, and he got an appointment with him. So and a year later, when I was back at the same conference, the guy said back to everyone, by the way, I'm now on Tony's medical team. So not only do you learn from these people how to be really good at one particular aspect of your life, your career, but you get their network, right? And that's vital, right? So if it's resilience you want to learn, or it's leadership or culture, find the model. Like, there's endless people out there that do amazing things. There's Simon Sinek in purpose. There's Brene Brown in courage and standing up for yourself. There's always someone who's your flavor. You know what I mean? Like, they speak the language that you need to hear at that particular point in time. My sense is, if you don't know who the person is, then we'll go searching. They'll come up eventually, right? And that might take you a few weeks to find the right person, but then that's a person you go and try and learn everything they've got to teach.
For sure. For sure.
Okay,
Awesome.
so final step of the 5 steps is operating rhythm, right? A bit of a rhythm. So I think, well, we might have already spoken a little bit about this, but discipline is probably the hardest thing when it comes to executing vision. And I'll be honest, like, vision's great, all these things are really good, but if you don't have something where you check in on yourself regularly, right? And I'll just share the screen again.
Yeah.
If you don't have a little something where you check in on yourself regularly that aligns to the execution of some of these goals. So I've got in my little rhythm there, well, I want to do daily journaling. It won't be every day, that's all right, but it'll be very regular, okay? My wife and I want to keep good mental strength and presence. You know what? We're going to have we already do have weekly dinners, but this is where we just sit down, like on a Tuesday or Wednesday night, and we don't turn on the telly or anything. We just sit around, we just chat for hours and hours and hours, have a wonderful time, and talk about how the family's going and what's happening. And that's just something we're just not going to sacrifice. We're going to really keep that in place. We want to improve our fitness, so we're both going to do hard workouts, minimum 3 times a week. Now, the other thing that is not in here just yet is, I come back every week to my plans on my business and my family and life. And that little check-in keeps me focused. 4 times a year, normally 4 times a year, I go away to the mountains and I review my vision, right? And what I do is I just say, okay, sort of rank myself on the key things I was meant to do to achieve the vision, the little projects I was working on. Refocus, recenter, make sure everything's still valid, and then work out what the next steps are. Now, what this is like is, imagine you're on a great big, back in 200 years ago, you're on a big sailing ship and you're on a great big journey across an ocean when you don't have GPS, right? What it means is, as you're going along, you're recalibrating your direction based on the stars. You've got the old sextant out, you're trying to get your navigation, you're plotting where you are now in relation to the vision or destination you've been trying to go to. And when you do that, all of a sudden you can readjust course. Now, what happens to an enormous number of us is we don't do the check-in for a year. So we set goals around New Year's Eve. Oh, I've got some wonderful New Year's resolutions. And we don't look at them again until New Year's Eve again the next year. And as a result, we are so far off course. All right, we're in the bottom of the Pacific. We should be at the top. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's that far off. And as a result, we lose hope. We don't get it. So my advice is check in at least quarterly. Set yourself 2 to 3 hours a quarter to come back and look at this chapter's goals, plan, models of excellence and rhythm. Refocus yourself, get out your vision board and actually really try and refocus on it. So that template's there. And if anybody got any comments, please flick them through, download it. I can see there's a question there from Emma Smith who said, any tips on how to go about breaking down your goal into your plan? I often struggle working out the individual tasks it'll take to reach a goal. Yeah, well, I think the key there is to almost treat it like a project plan. And even if you've never done this before, use a Gantt chart. That sounds crazy, right? But there's the old project planning methodology that says, what are all the tasks and then what order do they go in? And you can use a Gantt chart, or even at home, I've got a little flip chart over here or a whiteboard. And what you can do is just get little Post-it notes and you say, okay, well, what's one of the tasks I've got to do? You put it on a Post-it note, you can put it up on the wall. What else have I got to do? You just write down all the tasks, right? It might be, find a mentor, set some goals, work out what the operating rhythm is. Just say if it's getting fit, it might be right. Find a coach, right? Work out the plan, schedule that in my diary, all this kind of stuff. Then you work out what's the order. So the benefit of using Post-it notes is then you can lift things up and go, oh, well, actually, that's before that one, and swap them around. And then it's about saying, okay, you tick that off. And when it's ticked off, you give it a little bit green tick on your wall, okay? I don't think with a lot of it, depending on the level of difficulty, my sense is we can overthink a lot of this. You don't need some beautiful PowerPoint deck, like our vision, like you saw last week, is drawn. A lot of the time we do have some typed up stuff, but it's drawn, and we just go back to the key things. Okay, are we on track? Give ourselves a score. What's next? What's next? What's next? I haven't found through this that the more rigid you are, the more detailed you are, sort of has never really resonated for me. But that's just me. Maybe you'll find it different. I hope that helped, Emma. Please let me know via the thing if you.
I had a question for you, Greg, around how do you cope? Obviously, the vision and I guess the goals to execute your vision is really clearly set out. How do you cope with not reaching those goals by the certain date? For example, by the end of the chapter being July to January.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm pretty dependent on what it is. Generally pretty kind to myself. Because what I tend to find is we sort of overestimate what we can do on life vision. It's that, the old Bill Gates saying people massively overestimate what they can do in 1 year and hugely underestimate what they can do in 10. And my sense is what you'll do is when you create a bit of a plan, if you come back quarterly, you'll start to realize what's really possible. Okay. The underlying thing you've got to ask yourself that's really important is, did I not reach it because my life is busier than I thought it would be? Or did I not reach it because I'm not motivated? I don't have the skill. Like you've got to ask yourself, don't get upset at yourself and go, oh, beat myself up, I didn't get a goal. Just go, well, why not? Right? Yeah. It's as simple as just saying, okay, well, we didn't reach that goal today. When you want to run a marathon, you just can't come out and run a marathon. You've actually got to, first of all, run 3Ks, then 6Ks, and 10Ks, and 15, and 20. Yeah. And every time you run 20Ks, you haven't run a marathon. Eventually you get to run one. What you've got to ask yourself is, there a technical skill I'm missing? Is there a tactical process I'm missing? Is there physical ability that I'm missing? Is there some mental skill I'm missing? Is there a network, like a social skill or a social network I'm missing? There will be something. If you sort of just go and do some analysis. Like if someone was coaching you, what would they say is missing? Right? And I think that ability to self-analyze why your goals aren't being achieved, and then just simply saying, well, if that's all that's missing, why don't I just do that? And if it's an important enough goal that, and as we sort of said, like in the very first visioning session, this is the kind of stuff that's most important to you in your entire life. Like this should be the non-negotiable. So if you've got things down there that are sort of, well, I'm not too worried if we get this or not, that's not gonna get you out of bed early. It's not gonna make you rise up and stand tall and deal with a bit of a setback. It's gonna motivate you to learn how to get there. And I think a lot of the time we forget that it's a learning process. Like if you want to be a black belt in karate, there's like 5 belts before you get to black belt. And you've just got to keep going back, and then they'll teach you a new technical skill, then they'll teach you a new process, they'll teach you a new mindset, you'll get physically stronger, you'll learn from another master, and then guess what happens? You immediately start going up through the different levels. All goals are like that.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got another question from David. I've always used the analogy of being in an aeroplane. You need to put on your oxygen mask before you can help others. All too often we put ourselves last. How does someone prioritize themselves to work towards their vision?
Well, that's a great question, David. It's that whole thing, like sometimes it can be confusing that in giving that we receive, it's through giving we receive. And I think sometimes we know that's so important as humans, and we do sort of play the martyr card and let everyone else have our sort of have their goals, but not our own. But there's a few things that have sustained me in this. One is that my kids need to see me being the best version of myself. They don't need me to always sacrifice my life just for them. They actually need me to be who I'm meant to be. And if I continue, that's better for them, right? That I can just be there and look after them, be present and help them. But then I don't want them coming off the sporting field or coming off, after, a day at kindy or something and just seeing that dad hasn't done enough. That dad's just okay with not doing, pushing himself a bit and growing and achieving goals. If you want to teach other people around you how to achieve goals and help them achieve goals, the very best thing you can do is show them how to do it. Demonstrate it day in, day out. And if your partner and your kids see you achieving goals, two things happen. One, they are inspired. We know through wellbeing statistics that if you, an individual, is thriving in sort of 4 or 5 elements of their life, so what we call 80% thriving, that we know that every other person in the house is also likely to be 80% more thriving. So it's phenomenal. Like if you are on fire and you are kicking goals, everyone else in the house will be doing exactly the same thing. You will inspire your friends. Like when I did that first Gobi march, I did it on my own because everyone else was like, "You're a fool. Go and do that, mate. Go and die in a desert."
Yeah.
The next time I had a mate call me up and say, "Hey, let's go do this together."
Yeah.
Right. So sometimes, there's that thing, right? But then the other thing is, as you push yourself into new territory, your brain opens up and learns new things and meets new people, and all of a sudden you create an even bigger world for you and those around you. And you're just motivated to do more for your kids and be there. And I think, there's a great Marianne Williamson quote, our biggest fear is not that we're inadequate, it's that we're powerful beyond measure. But if you keep reading that, there's a bit more. That's actually quite a long piece. And there's a line in there which I've always loved. And it says, "The world is not served by you playing small." Just not. So I hope that helps, David.
We've got another question as well. I think, we've got a little bit more time. Do you have a couple of tips for self-motivation? So obviously it helps if you're motivated, it motivates everyone around you. But I guess Ashley's question is around, how do you motivate yourself first?
Yeah, great question, Ashley. It really does depend on the source of lack of motivation. In my mind, often we get in this world where we're a bit stalled and a bit stuck. It might be on a goal, it might be on career. And so I always, this is back to that self-audit thing, like, why is there a lack of motivation? Are you just tired? Like you just need an extra sleep? Are you pushing too hard? Then on another goal, too difficult, overwhelm, doesn't work, you're trying to do too many things. All these things can actually affect motivation, right? Is it you just don't know the next step? You don't know it with confidence? Is it that you're isolated and maybe you need some friends to help you out, right? There's, like I always say, if you would imagine that you're in this little vortex, like a little well, and you're stuck in there, what we've got to do is we've got to pour in some knowledge, some resources, some people, a mentor, a friend, something that will help you rise up and get on to the next thing. If you're stuck, if you're unmotivated, talk to a great friend, go and learn from someone online who's doing the thing that you're doing. Just get moving in some way, because all it takes is a little bit and you start moving, right? Look, actually, I'm not motivated every single day to do everything, because it's just not the way we're built. We don't run. Don't believe any, the online influencers that say they run 110% every day. That's bullshit. Right? What's reality in a normal world is you make progress on goals, you do super well, you plateau, you run out of steam, you have a bit of a dip, then you go again, right? That's how all growth, all mastery, all goals work, right? If it doesn't look like this, it just doesn't. And so what we've got to do is actually be more forgiving, and I suppose more than forgiving, just more realistic, and reset our expectations around what is possible. Okay, if you just do a few things really well and try and do each of those with support, with friends, with a good rhythm, you'll be kicking off 2 or 3 goals super well, with pretty good spirit most of the time. You'll hit a bit of a plateau, then you'll go, okay, I've hit a plateau on this, I've got to look at it again and find out what the next step is, right? Which is always the benefit of a mentor or or a sensei or something who can take you to the next level.
Definitely.
Mm.
I just had one last question. I noticed that holidays post-lockdown is prominent on your current plan in the document. and I guess my question is around, why is it so important to have things like that are at the end of what I would consider it to be a pretty average chapter, being July to January at the moment. How important is it to have those positives, I guess, at the end of your plan to look forward to?
Well, I actually reckon that's been one of the things that has been most difficult this year. Is we were meant to be in Falls Creek in August, and understand we can't go, but that's something that we just look forward to. We dream about it. We get excited when we got to buy the ski gear and all this kind of stuff. Our kids talk about it, and a holiday, it's just this complete mental refresh, and I think we need that in our life. And so what's happened this year is maybe for some people it hasn't been as busy from a work front. For others, it's been crushing. But my sense is people are exhausted for a whole other set of reasons to normal, right? And so you need a break. But we haven't had a holiday, I don't think, this year, right? We've had maybe a couple of long weekends where we've sort of said, oh, let's just take today off on a Friday. But I know my wife's worked, I don't think she's had a week off since the start of the year, and she works 3 days a week. And I'm like, well, I've hardly had one, maybe a few days here and there. So what does that tell you? Like, well, we've got to find something. And that's not because we don't want to, it's because we've been stuck in the house together, right? And so in my mind, I think everybody should be finding some way to have a holiday. And if you can't go away, then find some way to do it super close to home. I don't know how you do that, but maybe do a house swap. I probably can't do that.
I was thinking, are you going to tell me to go and camp in a park? Because I'm not doing that.
I actually think there's a park near your place. It's super good for camping.
No, thanks.
No, I think in this case, to be honest, like in reality, we can't go anywhere until this is over. But
exactly.
I would just be saying to people, find a way to manage your workload, everything. Just make life as simple as possible, be as present as possible through this process. Find a way to use that little playbook that we did in session 1 to help you get through this time. And then more than anything, at the end, have a shining light that you can look forward to. Get away, go to your favorite place, go to the place that's your spiritual home away from lockdown, and just get there as soon as you can.
Awesome. All right.
All right, we should keep cracking. Yeah. Great to see you all. And what we're going to do, I think what we should do next week is our 6th session. What we might do is we might just reach out to some of the people listening and get a sense for what they want. So please, if you've got topics, send them through, because I really just want to make sure that people get the little things they want. I'm very happy if people just want to do a Q&A for half an hour. That's fine as well.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Beautiful.
Great.
Right,
look after yourself, Holly. We'll see you all next week.
Too. Okay. See you.
Cheers.